In a landmark victory for the freedoms of all Canadians, the federal court has just confirmed what most Canadians already knew, that the use of the Emergencies Act in 2022 was illegal and unconstitutional. 2 years ago, this Prime Minister decided to violate the charter rights of Canadians to deal with a political crisis of his own making. The decision to invoke the Emergencies Act directly violated Canadians' most essential rights to freedom of thought, belief, opinion, and expression. The federal court found that the illegal use of the Act, the reasons were not provided for the decision to declare a public order emergency, and they did not satisfy the requirements of the Emergencies Act. A Conservative government led by the Leader of the Opposition will ensure that the Emergencies Act can never again be used to silence political opposition.
This Guy's Garage. Like and subscribe.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Minister back from his $80,000 vacation, which he got for free. He said, like most Canadians, friends welcomed him for that vacation. He took two, not one, but two private jets paid for by the taxpayer, burning 100 tons of greenhouse gases into the atmosphere. He wants to tax the heat and the food of Canadians. Did he pay the full carbon tax on each of the 100 tons of emissions that he put into the atmosphere as part of his $80,000 vacation?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Speaker, the Conservative leader has simply no plan to address climate change in this country, no plan to increase the resilience of our communities in the fight against climate change. A warming climate causes droughts. Droughts damage crops. Damaged crops increase the cost of groceries. And yet, the Conservative Party cannot even agree on whether or not climate change is real. Mr. Speaker, we will achieve our emissions reductions, all the while sending Canadians checks to help with the costs of rising prices. They're a real solution.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Well, he says the greenhouse gas emissions are driving up grocery prices. He put 100 tons of those emissions in the atmosphere for his personal vacation. This is high tax, high flying, high carbon hypocrisy. Meanwhile, Canadians in Edmonton were facing minus 50-degree temperatures on which they were paying carbon taxes just to heat their homes and stay alive. Given that he gives himself a free vacation at other people's expense, will he at least allow Canadians to heat their homes without his tax?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
The Conservative leader likes to talk about the challenges Canadians are facing on the cost of living, but he refuses to take action in support of them. He chose to delay the passage of Bill C-59, which is also hurting his own caucus.
That's right.
Does the member for Battleford's Lloydminster now suddenly oppose maternity leave for adoptive parents? Surely the member for Cumberland Colchester won't back down on his advocacy to remove the GST on therapy and counseling services. While the Conservative leader is muzzling his own caucus and putting himself first, we'll keep putting Canadians.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
This one is just too easy. He walked into it. He had to muzzle a member from Newfoundland who called for an end to his leadership, joining another senator who did the same, because they understand that their constituents are literally starving and unable to heat their homes because the Prime Minister is quadrupling the carbon tax, doubling housing costs, and giving the worst inflation in 40 years. Why won't he listen to, instead of intimidating, his member for Newfoundland and put his leadership up to a review for...
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Speaker, over the course of the fall, we've announced projects on housing that are going to create 500,000 new homes across this country over the year. We're working hand in hand with community leaders, with mayors. We're making sure that we're moving forward on the priorities that are facing Canadians. In terms of standing up for his caucus, the leader across the way will not even mention the fact that the person sitting 3 seats to his left dined with a far-right conservative German politician and wants to abolish the United Nations. It is
Minister must still have sand in his ears from his Jamaican vacation. That must be why he can't hear the outcry from Canadians suffering from his carbon tax. While he was lining up at the all-inclusive, Canadians were lining up at food banks, and grocery prices jumped again, 38% higher than baseline inflation. Now, Common Sense Conservative Bill 234 will help bring prices down by taking the tax off of farm production. The only problem, Liberal senators gutted the bill.
Yep.
Will the government reject the Senate amendments so that the tax can come off and food prices can come down?
Yes.
The Honourable Deputy Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, our government absolutely understands that the housing and the cost of living are challenges for Canadians. That is why we are aggressively working across the country to build more homes faster. The Housing Accelerator Fund, with more than 30 agreements in place across Canada, will lead to 500,000 new homes being built. But the question, Mr. Speaker, is what will the Conservatives cut? They know how to cut, they don't know how to build. And what Canada needs right now is builders.
The Honourable Member from Regina Capel.
We'll cut the waste and mismanagement that's driving up inflation in the first place, like the infrastructure bank, like high-priced consultants, and like sending money to the Asian infrastructure bank to build projects overseas instead of here at home.
Yeah.
But the question was about the carbon tax and why the Prime Minister is so pathologically obsessed with it. He doesn't care that Canadians are going to food banks, or that mothers are watering down milk, or that seniors are skipping meals. He even sent one of his ministers to go bully Liberal senators into gutting the bill. So once again, will they reject the Senate amendments so that the tax can come off farmers and food prices can come down?
The Honourable Deputy Prime Minister and Minister of Finance.
You know, Mr. Speaker, when the Conservatives talk about working families, everyone knows those are crocodile tears. This is the party that has voted against early learning and child care, a revolutionary national program which is bringing down costs for hundreds of thousands of families across the country and allowing women to go to work. These Conservatives have voted against the Canada Child Benefit, a huge support for families across the country.
Member from Lethbridge.
Never before have we seen ignorance used as a political strategy the way this Liberal government uses it. It's shameful. At the end of the day, Canadians are struggling day in and day out to be able to heat their homes, to be able to put food on their tables, and to be able to care for their families. And the carbon tax only increases that cost more. And what do you know? On April 1st, the carbon tax is scheduled to go up yet again. This government is going to hike it again on April 1st. So what does government choose to put its feet into reality and to acknowledge the struggle that everyday Canadians face and show a little bit of compassion, scrap the tax, stop the increase?
The Honourable Deputy Prime Minister and Minister of Finance.
You know, Mr. Speaker, earlier today the Conservatives were talking about hypocrisy, and that is a subject they know a lot about. They are particularly hypocritical when it comes to talking about supporting working families and the most vulnerable. Since we formed government, 2.3 million Canadians have been lifted out of poverty. The poverty rate in Canada has been cut in half. And you know what they want to do next? They want to take carbon price rebate checks out of the bank accounts of Canadian families. That's $1,000 in Ontario, more than $1,000 in Alberta, Saskatchewan. That will hurt Canadians.
The Honourable Member from Lethbridge.
There's this government's false perception of reality, and then there's the reality that everyday Canadians are experiencing. I would invite the Honourable Member to consider what the reality actually is. If she could only come down from her high horse and enter into the everyday life of Canadians, she might understand. Not everyone lives in downtown Toronto and has access to the luxuries that she does. Canadians are struggling. They are struggling to put food on their tables. They are struggling to pay their heating bills. They are struggling to be able to care for their families. Record numbers of Canadians are using food banks, and it has a lot to do with the carbon tax, which is scheduled to increase on April 1st. Will this government axe the tax?
The Honourable Deputy Prime Minister and Minister of Finance.
Canadians do not have access to the luxuries that the Leader of the Opposition enjoys. Government-provided housing